African telecommunication industry is one of the fiercest and highly competitive industries in the region. No single company has total dominance in every part of the continent. It has always been shared, with the strongest surviving and the weakest collapsing. It is an industry that has seen so many mergers and acquisitions. A company may be dominant in one country, but may struggle to even create awareness in the other. How a company operates is always unique, considering whatever country it finds itself. Therefore, it is a highly dynamic industry. Many telecommunication companies had to give up after a long struggle. It is an industry where rivals come together when necessary to compete with market leaders in respective countries. Irrespective of the high barrier to entry, MTN sits at the top as the biggest in terms of subscriber base in the African continent, beating the likes of Vodafone, Tigo, Airtel, Globacom, and many others. My name is Bernard, and you are watching African Dream Motivation. Without wasting much time, let's begin. Moving back into history, communication has been a key component of our day-to-day activities. As time evolved, the system of communication kept improving and new ideas came on board. People began finding ways and means to shorten the long duration information takes to reach the desired recipients. After so many centuries, it was still taking days, months, and sometimes even years for simple messages to be delivered. In the early days, pigeons were used to send information due to their homing nature. Messages written on a piece of paper were rolled and placed in a tiny tube and tied to the pigeon's back or claws. They were then released, after which they used their direction instincts to fly home. The human race continued to explore, experimenting with several ways of making communication easier. The revolution continued century by century. In the 1930s, a powerful discovery and invention was brought to light that was able to shorten communication from days to a matter of hours. This invention was called a telegraph. This device was able to transmit messages in a form of symbols understood by the sender and the receiver. This technology led to the invention of a telephone, which was first patented in 1976. Gradually, the radio and television technology came into existence, with the computer network and internet arriving in the mid-20th century, introducing the wireless communication system. In the early 1990s, African countries began looking at strengthening their communication system to aid comfortable communication in the region. By 1994, there were 4 million landlines in South Africa, with only 1% being owned by Black South Africans. With more state-owned companies coming on board, and governments doing everything they could to help create jobs through a public-private partnership, the government of South Africa assisted in establishing a telecommunication company called MCell, which later became MTN. This was widely accepted across South Africa, with many people seeing it as their own, and more importantly, had the support of the government. It was the same year Nelson Mandela was sworn in as South Africa's first fully representative democratically elected president. In that same year, MTN rolled in South Africa's first GSM payphones, which could carry both voice and data. By 1995, MTN became the first telecommunication company in South Africa to offer free calls to emergency services, and in the next 5 years, the company focused on becoming one of the best telecommunication companies in South Africa, introducing pay-as-you-go services and developing a telemetric app for vehicle tracking and theft recovery via GSM. In 1996, MTN acquired South Africa's biggest service provider, MTEL, which brought about significant expansion in the service provision space. By 1998, the South African telecommunication giant was ready to enter markets beyond the boundaries of the country. MTN, after a long wait, won license to operate in Uganda. In Uganda, MTN gradually began transforming the industry, fixing landline connections, and reaching out even to those in the rural areas. In 4 years, the telecommunication giant had quadrupled the country's teledensity, making it enjoy a tremendous lead in the industry. Also in 1998, MTN was strategically positioning itself in Rwanda. Rwanda approved the license of the telecommunication company, giving it an edge in the East African market. Within a space of 5 years, MTN became the leading telecommunication company in Rwanda, repeating an undisputed dominance demonstrated in their early days. Before the 20th century could go to sleep, MTN had established itself as an international brand, getting recognitions worldwide. In 2001, MTN became a Tier 1 internet service provider, trading as MTN Network Solutions. This was a great advantage, putting the company at the level of big telecommunication giants like British Telecom, Dutch Telecom, Verizon, and a few others. A Tier 1 internet service provider is referred to as the backbone of the internet provider, reaching millions of people in different regions. MTN reaching this level meant they could build powerful infrastructures such as the Atlantic Sea cables and also own and manage their operating infrastructures such as routers and other intermediary devices. It was a great achievement, allowing the telecommunication company to operate in all parts of Africa and beyond. Afterwards, the expansionary measures began extensively, establishing a strong brand throughout Africa, reaching villages and cities. MTN expanded to the extent that they had a payphone built on Lake Victoria in Uganda. It was marvelous. As a Tier 1 internet service provider, MTN began entering the Asian market. In 2004, the company won a license to operate in Cyprus. MTN went ahead to launch the country's first 4G network in 2015. The African startup was now growing at an extremely fast pace, competing with the international brands which had been in existence for a very long time. MTN reached 40 million subscribers in 2006, which was a remarkable milestone that sent a strong message to its competitors. Due to their hard work and ability to penetrate even the hardest of markets in Africa, MTN Group was awarded African Mobile Operator of the Year in 2008 by the leading telecom publication for the Middle East and Africa, Coms MEA. Before mobile money came into being, transactions were conducted with physical cash, which posed so many threats. The risk of danger when carrying money around was very high. It was a problem that needed an urgent solution. Looking at Africa at that time, almost everyone had a mobile phone and a registered SIM card, and credit transfer technologies were already functioning. It was time to make money transfer possible. By 2009, MTN had finally developed their mobile money system, which had undergone several beta testing. MTN had millions of subscribers already, so rolling in their mobile money service was definitely going to be a smooth process. MTN launched its mobile money service in Benin, Ghana, Cameroon, Ivory Coast, Uganda, and Yemen. This introduction became the backbone of the African electronic payments, leading the continent into a cashless economy. MTN expanded their services to many African countries, enjoying tremendous success in countries like Ghana, Uganda, and the list goes on and on. To take the mobile money service to the next level, MTN launched a more advanced system in 2020 to enable transfer of money from outside Africa into Africa conveniently. This was called MTN Homeland. Also in 2009, MTN hit a 100 million subscriber mark in Africa and the Middle East, indicating outstanding acceptance in both continents. To thrive in such a competitive industry, the telecommunication company needed to acquire, merge, and even partner with market leaders elsewhere. To further grow in South Africa, MTN acquired Verizon Business in South Africa, which was a data service provider in South Africa and 4 other African countries. On 28 February 2009, the acquisition was completed and Verizon Business South Africa was now MTN. In 2010, a global media brand in Chicago that publishes news, analysis, and data on marketing recognized MTN as one of the 30 hottest brands in the world. It was therefore not surprising that in 2010 FIFA World Cup, MTN was the only African global sponsor, which demonstrated the company's dominance in the industry. In 2013, African e-commerce was about to take a different turn, with so many e-commerce brands coming into the scene. Rocket Internet, a world-leading startup incubator that has funded dozens of small businesses around the globe, partnered with MTN to help improve internet service in Africa and the Middle East. This partnership brought about MTN's investment in Jumia, which began in 2014. The year 2014 was a golden year for the telecommunication giant. MTN was named as the overall winner in Rwanda's first Corporate Social Responsibility Award. To end the year in a grand style, the company was voted the most valuable and most admired African brand in 2014 Brand's Top 100 list. To cement their leading position in Africa, MTN acquired a couple of companies in the internet service provision space. A few of them include multimedia and telecom company known as Smart Village in South Africa. On 26 June 2009, MTN merged with Belgacom International Carrier Services. Also in 2012, MTN announced a partnership with DSL broadband service provider AfriHost in an effort to provide highly efficient broadband services to its clients. These acquisitions, mergers, and partnerships were key to making the company the biggest in Africa. On 31st May 2018, MTN launched its initial public offering, which lasted for almost a year. This was the first time in the world mobile money had been used as a payment method for an initial public offering. At the end of the IPO, a total of 4.6 million ordinary shares representing 35% of its equity were offered to qualifying applicants. As at the recording of this video, MTN is active in over 20 countries, with most of them from Africa and a few others from Asia. When it comes to sponsorships, the African giant hasn't been absent. The MTN Group sponsored the CAF Champions League football competition. Throughout Africa too, the telecommunication company has sponsored a couple of domestic leagues, contributing greatly to the world of sports. Talking about their sponsorship deals with football clubs, the biggest came on 18th May 2010 when MTN announced a sponsorship deal with English football club Manchester United. It was a deal to increase the club's reach to fans all over Africa by giving MTN the right to make exclusive mobile content like match highlights, player profiles, and even ringtones. In 2018, the Global System for Mobile Communication reported that after a decade of the creation of mobile money, transactions to the value of 1.3 billion were recorded. This showed that the movement of money in Africa had been easier and literally safer with the help and influence of mobile money service providers like MTN, leading many markets in Africa. In terms of job creation, just mobile money services alone has offered employment to over 2 million people in Africa. This is simply technology making a meaningful impact. In 2011, MTN was the second cellular provider to introduce 4G and LTE in South Africa and gradually expanded across the continent of Africa. In 2019, The fifth generation standard for broadband cellular network, 5G, was deemed the perfect replacement for the 4G version. Many Tier 1 internet service providers began preparing for its launch worldwide. On 30th June 2020, MTN became the first network operator to launch a live public 5G network which became available in Johannesburg and Cape Town. Even though the industry is so much competitive, MTN is still soaring higher, outcompeting many of the telecommunication companies available, especially on the African continent. It hasn't been easy. In every line of work, there are ups and downs, and even the most valuable company in Africa cannot escape this. MTN might be the biggest in Africa and the 8th largest in the world in terms of subscribers, but it still faces numerous challenges. There is still a greater part of Africa lacking internet connectivity in this modern world. There are so many barriers, and this means there is still much to be done. However, for a company like MTN to rise up to lead the continent, it means nothing is impossible. If you could dream big, work hard and persevere, you will surely get there. Thanks for watching this video to the end. Let me know what you think in the comment section. If you are new here, don't forget to subscribe and click on the notification bell. Also, share this video with anyone you believe will love it as you did. Thanks again. See you in our next video. Until then, have a nice day.